So basically, we help salespeople connect directly with their online visitors from their website, providing them analytics and data so that they can respond within 5 or 10 minutes and call them back. Um, I have to do my pitch. We offer a 30-day free trial, and our tool has actually been proven to increase conversion rates and the leads generated from your site. And in the crowd, I can see a couple of our customers, so hopefully they will speak well of us. This is Sarah from Dragon Ball, who will speak a bit about herself, and Patrick from Advocate.
Hi, so thanks for coming along tonight. So I've been working with Dragon Law for a year now since we worked in Singapore. We've reported in Hong Kong. So I'm the sales manager for the Singapore team. I was a commercial lawyer years ago and made a recent move of my life and got out of private practice, working in New Zealand and Australia. My first kind of venture into sales was my last legal job. And then I went into recruitment for a while as well in Singapore. So Dragon Law is an online legal services business. We sell B2B and allow startups, SMEs, and larger enterprises as well to create documents using our cloud technology in the most cost-effective and efficient way as well. And we also have a 30-day free trial on the site.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming along. I'm Patrick, co-founder of Advocately. Other co-founder of Advocately is just over there, Lachlan. Advocately helps B2B SaaS companies start advocate marketing programs. So we help find the happiest customers, nurture the relationship with them, and get them to do things to help you get more customers, whether that's writing reviews online, participating in case studies, opting in for allowing you to use their logo on your website, participating in conversations on social media, that kind of thing. Before Lachlan and I started Advocately, I was at TradeGecko as the VP sales head.
And do you also have a 30-day free trial period?
I'm an awful friend of Zal, and I did not yet have a free trial period. So Lachlan and I will get that set up.
Well, so what we'll do is we've got a couple questions, and we had asked you guys when you signed up to tell us some of your challenges. So we'll go through some of those a bit, but we'll start with Patrick. One of the things that's a bit different from your experience is been in B2B, because a lot of people, it's much more common in Asia. There's this mysterious, billion consumer group, which everybody's trying to go after. That's very B2C. But why don't you tell us about some of your experiences about selling to B2B here in Asia and Singapore?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I think this applies in Asia and other markets as well. I find with B2B, even selling relatively, whether regardless of price, it's always good to communicate with customers on the phone as much as possible and try and help them become successful with your product during the trial period. I think is one of the things that we really propagated both at TradeGecko and Advocately is for the customer to really understand what they're buying and ideally to be as successful as possible and get as many results as possible during the sales cycle. So at the end of the time period, it becomes something they want to pay for to maintain, to keep on, as opposed to a decision to start using. So in our case, I'm not sure if anybody here uses Slack. No? Yes, maybe. So we give everyone notifications when they get new 5-star reviews online, ideally for using Advocately, and people really enjoy that. So often when our customers decide to sign up, it's to keep that going, as opposed to like, oh cool, this is how it works, can we please have something?
Let me just introduce Philip, who's just come in, who is the head of sales for PurpleClick. Philip, you want to say a couple words about you guys?
Right. So heading the sales team at PurpleClick. Prior to that, heading the account management over at Lazada, as well as a bit of a stint at Facebook and Groupon before that. Beyond work as well, I have co-founded 3 companies. One of them being an e-commerce startup, and 2 offline businesses. One of them got killed by the Red Bull in Singapore, so there's 2 remaining. But yeah, I'm very interested. Sales is a very close topic to my heart. I've always been a salesperson at heart, and yeah, glad to be here today. Thank you.
Cool. So, okay, then Sarah, for you, what I want to talk about is something that all startups are really, really bad at, which is sales forecasting. And how important is it for a company to be able to forecast and to take that forecasting to your board or your investors or whoever it might be?
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people overlook when they get so excited about getting investment with your early stage startup or as you're kind of in growth stage as well. Then all of a sudden it's a short, sharp reality that you now have to really accurately report back to a board, back to investors. So when you forecast this at the beginning of the month, why have we only done 30%? We recently had a friend who joined a startup, loads of sales experience. He put together the business plan for the startup, really realistic forecasts of what he thought they could sell in the first 6 months, 1 year, 3 years. They brought on the investor. The investor said, why is this so low? I want 3 times as much. The founder agreed to that and said, right, yeah, we'll nail it, we'll get our sales team to do this much. My friend has resigned as head of sales from there because the founder just put so much pressure on what he realistically knew that they would bring in, and he never wanted to build it. So he felt that he was being set up to fail. But one of the most important things on the forecasting side is really training your sales team as well. Training them in what percentages you're using percentage forecasting or rating through the sales stack. When is someone going to hit 99%? What is the consistent mark across the business when you think someone's at that 99% level? But when you're sent out interest, is it when you've got a signed contract? Make sure the sales team is doing that consistently so that you can report that. And give them updates and refreshers on the level so that people aren't being too optimistic about things, but you don't want a sales team to be really conservative and dropping down every sale that they've got in the pipeline as well, because they don't want to get in trouble for being overly optimistic. It's a really fun line teaching them how to percentage base each line and each sale day.
Is the question that, with sales, is it that you under promise and over deliver? Is that what you want to be doing with your forecasting? That you want to sort of be as accurate as possible?
As accurate as possible. I think the under promise and over deliver has been the trend that is around.
To sales manager response.
Yeah.
It's your number trying to be accurate and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have heard quite a few investors tell me that, any startup that gives you predictions for more than a year, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. It's changing on a daily basis. The forecasting needs to be updated, not even daily, like an hourly. As soon as you've spoken to a client, as soon as you've got in a new lead, you constantly, our forecast sheet is, we're on it on our phones, we're on it constantly open on our laptop, so that the team is just updating that, comments, stages, plans, and also it's really important to keep track of the information and comments in the forecasting. When I first joined Norton, my supervisor partner was very tactful about it. He said, if you get hit by a bus, how is someone in the team going to pick up when you're forecasting your comments and things like that the next day? So making sure that salespeople are really transparent about what is going on with the client is really important.
Sorry, if I just might jump in with one thing. This is sort of only really related to what you said at the start. In the context of startups, like worrying about like targets, sending it back to investors or the board or whatever. I think it's really important to remember to do it because don't do 1 million because you promise your investors you do 1 million. Do 1 million because you want to do a fucking million. Don't let it become this stressful thing that's hanging over you. Obviously, don't triple your 3-year out forecast. Like, I think that was a great story and something that everybody should keep in mind, but just don't let it become this like negative overhanging thing. Like, remember why you want to do it, and I can guarantee you don't want to do X in revenue just because you forecasted it to a board or adjuster or whatever.
So, Philip, I just wanted to ask you now, when we asked the audience, one of the most common questions that we got was, how do you deal with, and this is Asia, so how do you deal with negotiations? Every single person wants to bargain, everybody wants to deal.
To throw it to the Asian guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's different here. I mean, here it's so often and it's done and done again. But that's the truth of the matter. I mean, back when I was doing selling as well, and I still do selling actually, even though I manage. But you have people closing over the phone, everywhere else in the world. But over here, you got to step through that door, and what gets you through that is already challenging enough. And then when you get to the stage of negotiation, I mean, a lot of the time, a lot of discussions, no matter who you are, revolves around price. I mean, when I was at Facebook, for instance, everyone knows it's a transparent platform, it's auction-based bidding, but people still came to us with sort of price negotiations, and they would be asking for things like, extra media credit, stuff like that you're usually not supposed to get, right? And so it would always come down towards a good pivot, and I think that's really the art of it, right? Because what's really the person's concern? They always jump to price because it's the easiest thing to, and the most straightforward thing to talk about. It's universal. They only want to talk about price to you. But I always tell the teams that I manage that, look, doing sales, especially over here, is like it's like getting into a relationship, right? You really want to find out what the other party is looking for, what drives them, what interests them, what their problems are, what their pain points are. And a lot of the time, when it comes down to it, it's really just assurance that they want more than anything else. But it's finding out which area of assurance they need the most that is usually the problem. So it's usually a bad experience with another vendor or agency maybe previously. It could be down to specific kind of deliverables that they have no way of illustrating, or rather they can't illustrate it clearly to you during that engagement. And so I think it just calls for more fact finding when you're faced with kind of negotiation and price slashing kind of conversations, and that's what it really comes down to.
I mean, it's interesting because for me, I think it's a game. I think we had a client of ours who was based in India, who we did a promotion where we said, okay, if you sign up now or you pay right now, this is in the first month that we launched, you got $2 per user per month, right? Which is literally you're paying 10% of our actual cost. You're paying 90% discount. I had a guy call me up 6 months after that promo ended, saying, I saw the promo. I want to get this, but I don't want to pay $2. I want to pay $1. And I was like, I can't do anything. That promo ended. Plus, you're shameless. Really, $1 difference? But I think for some of them, it's just like they want to be able to say, yeah, look what I did. This guy told me this price and I knocked it down. And I think when they expect you to negotiate, and we're in the SaaS business. People don't negotiate in SaaS. There's no public pricing on the website, right? There's no discount, it might be a coupon or whatever. So it's really an interesting challenge in being your customers.
One of the ways that we did the negotiations part, we gave the salespeople different tools to negotiate with, different packages, things like that. So we don't discount our base rate. That's our subscription rate. But then we gave them, for Dragonlord, you can add organizations, you can add users, you can have pay fee for document information. Those are things, especially that add a company, add a user, don't actually cost the business at all. It's literally just click of a button on the technology. But it's giving the salespeople a way to negotiate with someone without even having to take down the base subscription.
I think that's great advice. You're talking about what else can you offer. You don't have to talk about the price, but maybe it's like a little bit longer warranty or something like that. There's something that you can put into that makes them feel they're getting more value than they would to start.
Just to add to that as well, I think it also depends where you're coming from as a company, right? Like if you were working for, let's say, Facebook, or if you're truly a startup and you know you really need this business and you need a client much more than the client needs you at that point. One thing because I've moved into a smaller company right now, and one thing I've trained the salespeople to do is not just to sell to clients, but also to sell internally. And I always set them up for like a pitch to me, and ask, come up with a custom deal structure, right? Maybe, yeah, sure, go for a more aggressive margin with a certain client, but get a certain commit on future spend or something, and get it signed off, or get it agreed in black and white at the very least, and pitch it to me, and run it through me before you run it through the other departments in the company, which you have to jump for approvals through later on. And I think that's something that's worked out well because with salespeople you tend to get the more creative type sometimes, and they will just find a way to bridge different gaps and give them different solutions that way.
So talking about customers, I know Patrick, I might come to you because I know that you were a trade gecko pretty much from the beginning, and you started your own thing now. So tell me, the first 10, 20, 30 paying customers you get are very different from the 100, 200, 300 paying customers that you get. So what are the things that you have to do, or what are the things that you've done to convince those first key people to part with their money for your product?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, they're super, super different. Basically, what have I done? What haven't we done? I think one thing that Lachlan and I focused on is really, so I suppose there's a couple of things. Before we even started, or before we even wrote any code, we wanted somebody to give us some money to solve the problem for them. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be like your fixed price forever, but just a small amount of money, and you can even delay the renewal until the code starts working for them and they start getting value from the product is where I really start the sales process. So maybe get like 3 to 5 people to pay you before you can start writing code, delay the renewal date, take really good care of them, look after them, and then once they actually start getting results, then it will auto review.
Does that scare anybody out here who's just got a new startup? The idea of you asking for money before you've written a line of code? Because I know that when we did it, that terrified us, but it's amazing how many people are willing to part with money for an idea.
Yeah, I'm not saying like heaps of money, but just something. Somebody's not going to give you like, I don't know, depends what you're trying to do, but like some amount of money, like a kind of market rate, I'd probably, I don't know, I really liked my job as trading. I hung out with my friends every day, it was awesome. So I was a little bit hesitant with that, and then I think what Lachlan and I's approach has been is to really, once we did that and we did have a working product, is we really drive customer success during the sales cycle. One thing it does is a mixed risk for us is our net promoter score is very high. Because of that is because from when people give us money, they're getting results from the product. The sales cycle can still be very short doing that if you get the onboarding right. And it also means that when you ask for money and it's already working and they're getting results from it, they're much more likely to give it for you. I'm not saying this forever, but like first 30. So I think we've asked one person to pay us ever who didn't end up paying us, and it's because they just hired their director of marketing and they were about to hire a new one, and that new one was going to inherit HubSpot, not set up from that just person, and they didn't want to make them inherit, basically start consuming that person's budget. So they're still in our pipeline and we're still working.
So then, Sarah, I want to talk to you about, in most companies, the sales and marketing department are synonymous, but also enemies, right? The marketing blames sales for not closing their leads, sales blames marketing for not bringing in quality enough leads. I mean, this is the case in every business. So, what do you think about in terms of the relationship? How do you get what the term now I think is smarketing, where you combine sales and marketing into one company?
Yeah, I think it has always been such a big blame game. And there's still elements of that, but I think in a startup particularly, it's really important to work together. We do have separate sales people, separate marketing people. It's so important to work for that one goal. A lot of the marketing team's responsibility is, of course, bring in leads, create content that's going to bring in leads. But also, in the sales side, use your marketing team to create content that will actually build trust with the leads that you're working on as well. but not just content that's going to bring someone in and then the marketing finishes. We have a lot of ebooks that our marketing team create, with case studies for clients, on clients that are using us at the moment. A lot of the different content that they generate that gives us credibility as a business. So it builds trust with the clients that we're using. You're getting the marketing team to produce things without the founding team, that as a lead is going through the sales cycle, you can keep using that content from the marketing team to actually work through the sales cycle, not just get them as a lead at the start. Trust is one of the big things, especially for us at Dragon Law. We're doing something quite different. We're around the globe with similar businesses, but we've developed the technology in kind of a different way. And particularly in Singapore, lawyers have done an amazing job at ingraining that everything legal needs to be done through a law firm. Every commercial document needs to be signed by a lawyer or witnessed by a lawyer, which isn't the case. And so we're trying to empower companies to self-service, to do these routine documents when they can, and it's a real mental shift. So we've got to build credibility for the company, credibility and trust with the clients as well. So our marketing team is brilliant at providing the sales team with the content to build trust, not just providing them with leads as well.
And so a long time, and Philip, I'm going to ask you this because it comes along the lines of like the boring sales stuff, right?
Sure.
But the stuff that
It's never boring.
So, but like, how important is it for a company to have a sales methodology? Yeah, like right from the beginning.
Right. Of course, the correct answer is extremely important, right? But I think what's more important is also to have flexibility within the methodology. Because as you go, you really learn as you go. And touching on some of the questions that were sort of brought up earlier, for instance, early clients versus later clients, in sales methodology is just like go upside down. And with the early clients, you're really hiring people that have relationships. And out of that, you are structuring a lot of unique kind of credit terms for your early clients because you really need them. And down the line, you'll then be hiring maybe more for expertise, more for specific niches or industries and whatever. And then when it comes to how they sell, I don't ever believe there's a single way to it, right? But there are universal kind of attributes that have to be ironed in. And one of the main things I think about this is just productivity, and that's it. And that's why we love the app so much as well, because it keeps people buzzing and chiming along and doing what they need to, right? And with that then comes the administration, and all these things come together because with the pipeline it then flows upwards, and then we know how to plan and project better, and so on and so forth. So one thing that I've always kept constant in terms of the methodology is the discipline that's required, right? And that doesn't change. I mean, you could be, I tell myself that you could be at home, in your underwear, cold calling or whatever, and that makes you feel more comfortable and that gets you more appointments, by all means, please. But you're accountable to your numbers, you're accountable to the reporting that you have for me, and in a sense, you're also accountable for the quality of work that shows up with the client. And that doesn't change. But how you do it is entirely up to you, because I'll know at the end of a month if you're doing good work or not. Every single month or even every single week when we catch up, I'll be able to see just from the output that you have. I mean, even if I tell it really honestly, even if you plow your calendar full of fake appointments, that's been done so many times by so many salespeople before, it'll be really easy to verify and tell. And it happens a lot all over the world, all these things. So I think when you give that bit of trust, but it starts at the hiring phase, when you hire correctly and then you give that bit of trust, it nurtures its own kind of methodology and culture, and that spawns something out of itself. Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick, we'll talk about this, going back to the sales process. How important is customer profiling in your eyes for a startup? Like, do they need to know, these are the 20, 30 companies that I'm going to hit straight away. These are who I want. This is my target. This is how much money they earn. This is the size of the company. How important is it for you guys, or in your experience, to be doing really specific customer profiling?
yeah, like for us, it's incredibly important. I think customer profiling. I'm not sure who I'm borrowing this from, but I'm sure I'm borrowing it from somebody. That means you can fish with a spear instead of fishing with a net. You should understand why they potentially need your products. You should have, but you basically picking, you choosing your success. So for us, it's incredibly useful. There can be any number of variables that make up a customer profile. Lincoln Murphy, who's a very famous SaaS guy, he's big on ideal customer profiles. He's got a great free spreadsheet online, which I recommend everybody checks out. It's a G-Doc. Every time I open it up, there's like 20 people in there. So yeah, I'm sure sometimes it goes up and down, but I'm sure then like somebody will tweet it out again and like a bunch of people get in there. I'd strongly recommend it. So yeah, for us, some of the attributes we look at that are available to see is your business model, like really obvious stuff like business model, employee count, their pricing, um, the customer base, number of employees. You can use Chrome extensions for add-ons. So in the context of technology, we integrate with a bunch of other technology that people use, say their marketing system, whether it's Marketo, HubSpot, Intercom, Customer.io, MailChimp, whatever. Lucep, shout out to Lucep. You can see all that on their website if you use extensions like Data Nights or Built With, which can also then go into your methodology and into your outreach as well, which provides a improved response rate because it's more contextual to them. So yeah, I'd say I think it would be a waste of time and potentially even not only have no effect or a lesser effect, but an adverse effect if you're not doing customer profiles before you even get in touch, because it's like putting a really shitty billboard up or like a really bad YouTube ad. Like it just can damage your brand as well.
So it's really like you've got to get as specific as you can about that. You should be able, it's like
I think so. Yeah.
like the buyer personas that we look at from a marketing point of view, right? Like
Exactly.
where they live, what do they like, what TV shows they watch. You should know that about them.
Exactly. For us, it's basically just using your time more effectively, representing your company more effectively, and just making sure you're going to win more. So like our example, and hopefully people can extrapolate this to themselves and apply it to them, is we help people get awesome reviews online. So if a customer, like ideally for us, somebody has some reviews online, they're listed on review sites, but don't have 0 reviews and aren't listed on any review sites. Like if somebody isn't even listed, then I've got to talk them into like why they should get listed, and then versus somebody who's maybe underperforming, we can help them with that. Is a much shorter sales cycle.
So Sarah, because we were talking about this a bit earlier, right, where we talk about how startups need to sell to B2B, and the fact that there is a big difference now, particularly between inbound and outbound, and which one do you pick and how do you go forward with that?
So we've seen the importance of outbound hugely for us, and really targeted outbound as well. So fixing that profile as well, but also being flexible and getting that profile changed as you learn more about your product as well. So we have a whole matrix for our outbound lead gen guy, and as we get more clients that sign up, the data from our CRM about those clients will change the matrix that he works from. So when he profiles companies that we put in there. So we're constantly learning from the clients that do buy us to make that customer profile better as well. But that's a key point to the outbound part. I think when you're working in sales, here in particular, it's really good to keep speaking with your peers and other companies as well, and get ideas from them on the outbound and inbound. There's one of the companies that we partner with quite closely, global company, done really well in New Zealand, Australia, US, UK, recently entered Asia. Have always relied on inbound because they've had a great brand. But finding in Asia, and we're finding it as well, you've got to do the outbound. The companies, especially, we're looking at startups, but also to get more SMEs on board now. the traditional SMEs here are not necessarily online, they're not necessarily picking up your inbound processes. And so the outbound, making it very targeted. We literally have a team member that sits there profiling the specific person in the company that he's going to email. So he'll spend 1 week focusing on CFOs and COOs, and he'll do very targeted outbound outreach, highlighting their pain point and how Dragonlaw can help that. On another week, he might be focusing on CEOs of companies, and he'll use a different approach and a different outbound reach because they're worrying about different things. CFOs, COOs start streamlining processes. CEOs, some of them, especially if we're targeting tech companies, during 1 week, about updating and keeping in line with developing technology. Why would you use sales, industry sales system, legal, you keep up to date with most current things. So it's really targeted outreaches for the outbound. And we're seeing the response rate and the closing rate from using that outbound is the highest closing rate out of all of our lead generators at the moment.
Oh wow, so even you're saying outbound has a higher closing rate than inbound, which is famous for having a very high closing rate. That's really interesting. So I'll go back to Philip, just because you come from a wealth of experience of large, I mean I call them startups, but you can't really call Facebook and Groupon big startups anymore, but yeah. Where do you see the importance, and this is something that I think a lot of startups overlook, which is the importance of channel partners in their sales process? Because I think a lot of people view that it's my sales team or my marketing team. But where do channel partners fit in this? Is that something you have to think about right from the beginning?
Right. I think especially in markets where there's a lack of infrastructure or transparency or just mobility from a sales perspective, and especially I think these are especially important. For instance, in one of my previous companies, it was cloud telephony, and we didn't really see a lot of uptake with channel partners in the Singapore market, let's say. But in places like the Philippines, for instance, where business relationships have been there for like decades, and to break into one of them, it will just take you forever or never. We actually saw a lot of uplift from channel partners. And I think one thing when you identify a channel partner, especially I think within the region, is this: like, how would your product add a quantifiable, let's say, performance increase to whatever they're doing? Because while the rhetoric and the pitch and all that sounds really good, and there's always a hook or a sell to it, why channel partners would really move your product usually is because it's quantifiable. It might be a branding kind of an element, but with anything digital and trackable, it's always quantifiable. And I think that's, for instance, one of the other vendors that we work with at Coca-Cola, they do call tracking, right? And the reason why we've been moving a lot of their product as their channel partner is simply because of how it attributes increased performance to a lot of SME campaigns, where a lot of SMEs don't even think about these solutions because they would usually be out of reach if they were to approach like a Singtel or whatever, it would be priced a lot higher. But with us, they get something bundled in that attributes a lot more performance to them.
And I mean, it's interesting because I think software companies don't really think that a channel partner is an option. They think of channel partners as more like dated for product companies. But there are, I mean, you have to find those people. And I think I met a guy who basically said, your job is to find out whose life do you make easier with your product, right? And there's an Indian company called Tally, which does accounting software. And basically, they provide it free to accountants. The accountants then get trained on it and then push it to their clients. And we've got an Indian accountant who we're constantly in a fight with because they insist that we use Tally. And we're like, but that's not our, we're paying you to use our tool, use our tool, but they're so insistent, they're so ingrained, and that's a fantastic channel partner to have if you've got somebody on the other side fighting for your business. So what we're going to do for the next bit is we asked everybody that signed up if they could give us like what the current challenges that they're facing, because we wanted to really, bring some useful advice. And there were two things that came out as being pretty much everybody's problem, which was how do you get leads and how do you close leads? So basically, the whole sales process, right? So I think what I want to do is we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done to get business, like in the past, and some things that have worked, and how we've kind of, suckered up to our clients. I mean, I know the one thing that Taisha and I did in our very first startup is that we went to a conference, and everybody that we met at that conference that we liked or that we engaged with, we had these cards printed which said that this is good for 1 year after the event. And so it's amazing that you go to the bar and how many people sought you out for that free beer, right? But for $5, you got 15, 20 minutes with that person one-on-one to pitch it. And for me, that's a really cheap lead, right? That's cheaper than going on Google, right? If I can get somebody to come up to me for $5. So that was something that we did that was a bit out of the box. So I want to ask each of the panelists, like, what have you guys done? Is there a story, something that you've done a bit crazy or different to get new customers?
So last year we did we've been in Singapore for almost a year, or it's been in Singapore for almost a year. So we did a client appreciation Christmas drinks, invited all of our happy clients along up to our office, put on craft beer, wine, food, but then we also did a very targeted outreach to people that fit our company profile, our client profile, but had never had anything to do with Dragon Law before. And the invitation to them was Dragon Law's having an anniversary party. So for current clients, it was client appreciation. For our leads that we wanted, it was just random companies having an anniversary party to come along for free beer and wine. We got such a great response from the people that we were invited to the anniversary party site. The brand new leads came in, they were then in a room with our happy clients, and basically our clients sold for us on that night. So we've actually, and that was mid-December, we have a relatively long sales cycle as well, but we've actually closed a bunch of leads.
I mean, who doesn't like free beer and wine, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially at Christmas time, so that's a good idea.
I'll just do one more as well. We have a very, whole sales team. One of our guys is quite a difficult guy. He's working with a lead at the moment for a client, kind of halfway through that sales cycle. They've asked him if he can do some free modeling for one of their marketing campaigns. So he's going to do it. And I'm pretty sure they're going to feel as though they kind of need to sign on after he's done that.
I mean, that's like, really self-important.
They're two pretty compelling stories to follow. I don't know if I have anything quite that good, but to link back to, like we tried advance the customer targeting thing, like approaching people who we really wanted their feedback was the main thing. Though there was this one where there's one VC based in Europe, venture capital firm, and they specifically invest in B2B SaaS companies and B2B SaaS companies and marketplaces. And let's say, round numbers, there's 60 in the fund, 60 firms in the fund, around 30 B2B SaaS companies, which is our kind of happy place. And so I met him recently at a conference. I've spoken to him a number of times over the years at TradeGecko and a few other places. And I said, hey, would it be possible to get an introduction to a couple of portfolio companies? Now, keeping in mind what I said before about targeting people, like I was already in touch with 20 of those 30 customers, like had a bunch of them on free trial already. So there was only really 10 I was struggling to get in touch with. And of that, I think 5 weren't really a fit for us. So he's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. A lot of people like him will want to do a double opt-in introduction, which lowers the percentage rate. Like they'll want to check with the person first, hey, is it okay if I introduce you to Advocately? And then once that person says yes, introductory email will go through. But I was like, look, I just want an introduction to one portfolio company, this one in particular. They just raised a $7.5 million Series A. So we got the intro to them, and Lachlan and I, we signed them up within 14 days, and then I went back to him and I'm like, cool, they've just written a sys-reg review online, posted really fast, we now get introduced to the other two, and he did like straight away. So that was, yeah, but we were in touch with all of them already, but it was just this one in particular.
Just trying to rack my brain, thinking of any sexy stories. But so one of the things that we do at Purple Click is my team. It's a fully hunting team. It's acquisition. We have another team for account management altogether, and they always struggle when it comes to prospecting, right? Because I've called to death, and response rates are always on the decline. And, we do cold calling or. And so what I brought to the table when I joined, and I'm really surprised that actually a lot of companies and startups in Singapore don't actually use this. They don't use LinkedIn to the degree that it can be used for. And I'm a big advocate of the Sales Navigator product. So what I actually have in place is a scheme where the salespeople opt in or out. It's up to them. And if they opt in, the company co-pays. You don't pay the full subscription because you know they're going to be white elephant subscriptions after a while, right? So that's one thing we've done. On the sales administration side, I try to ease the load of prospecting by actually introducing tools that plug into, we use Salesforce. So it automates the whole data entry bit, which salespeople hate as well. So they do more prospecting, less time sort of keying it in. And some of the tools I use there include like Yesware and Extra, sort of like Salesforce CRM automation kind of tools. Beyond that, in Singapore, I think with how the government is, you get a lot of information actually readily available. It's just not in a very organized state. So we actually have a vendor that we subscribe to where it gives us a live feed into, if everyone knows what the ACRA database is. So it's a registry of companies in Singapore. And then we can filter them by sort of net profit or loss, paid up capital, industries, even locations. And that is a great way to, I think, initially filter cold leads to give salespeople stuff to go after that are already good to spend if you convince them, right? So I think that's been one of the biggest boosts to the sales team so far, like giving them focus by means of filtering, and this database is live. So the moment like another company with like 100 grand paid up capital in the right industry comes online there, we have access to that. And you just have to and whenever you download leads and all that, I sound like I'm doing a plug for these guys, but yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about signing up.
Right, yeah. They're actually Experian. So those guys, one of their products is actually this ACRA database, and you pay I think on a per lead basis, and if you download duplicates, it doesn't count. So it's a very fair model, and that way I track my salespeople to see this kind of prospecting doesn't suit everyone. You need someone that, with the name, can navigate a lot better than when they don't have a name. So, with SME sales, sometimes it's a bit tricky. I limit it to certain members of the team. Yeah.
And then the other flip side, obviously, is the closing of deals, which I think, sometimes, how do you know when this deal is not going to happen, right? Somebody's just stringing you along, they're just being polite, when do you cut off? Is there, I think, and I'm only asking this because a lot of the answers to the question of what is your current problem is just closing, finishing a deal, closing. So I'm imagining that quite a few people here are having this problem. What do you guys do? How do you know when is enough? How do you know when to push? Are there levers that you pull to try to help ease that? What do you guys do?
Break up emails and break up texts and break up messages. So literally at times treat it like it's a relationship. The team will send a breakup. Yeah, a breakup message. If someone's been dragging you on for so long, you need to put all efforts in to try to find the real objection. You know your business, you know how you can be a solution for it, you've identified their pain points, you know that price is not a genuine objection, you just can't find why it's dragging you on and on and on. Then we will send a breakup message that But if you found another solution for these needs, we talked about those pain points, that we could be a good solution, that if you found another solution to it, just let us know, or if you're not quite ready now, let me know when the time to reconnect would be, and then your sales team can fail fast on a deal and move on to the next, and move on to one that's actually going to come through. So, and a lot of the time, you see in those messages, people will come back and they feel really awful about it as well. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry for that for so long. You are the solution for us. Single payment, no payment. So,
I mean, I've not from you guys. I've had one from another client that was trying to get us, and you get that email, and then when their response is, "Oh, actually, I don't know if this is going to work with you guys." All of a sudden, you're like, "No, I want it to work. Like, if you're turning down business, you must know what you're doing. Like, let me sign up." And it can be really effective.
Yeah, I think like the breakup email is a good one. I actually think one of the things with closing deals, this might, once again in the context of an early stage startup, is to really just actually making sure you can close a deal. It starts on the first day you speak to that customer, like get the momentum going. Like, especially once again for your first 30 customers, they're free at 1:30 a.m. Saturday morning. Get the fuck up. Like, let's go. Like, don't be like, oh, I was going to do all my late night calls next Tuesday. So that's 4 days later. They've already survived 4 more days without your solution. Really, I'm not saying always do 1:30 a.m. calls, but I really mean if they do fit in that perfect customer profile, they're ready to go. They're happy to like get set up on your product. Really compress that customer journey as much as possible. Keep the customer going, and it's a little bit, it depends product to product. Obviously you can't just keep using Dragonwall forever, or then they might go into a window where they don't leave, you like need contracts for a bit, like you do need to, if it's intellectual property, they need to pay you. But for us, we try and get them so successful, and then when we ask for the money, the breakup email can be like, cool, so this is gonna switch off in a week and you won't get any more 5-star reviews. Like, trying not to, like, I would say it actually starts well before that point, is just getting that momentum going, forming an awesome relationship. They don't show up to a meeting, who cares? Be like, hey, guess we missed the meeting. Free same time, Tuesday, like, just keep going. I think would be the biggest, like, yeah, try not to even let it get to that point, and then break up emails like that.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, I firmly believe in always being on the front foot from the first engagement with any prospective client. One thing that too many salespeople do, I feel, is that, especially here, and when you talk about locals and all that, especially, they're too nice, right? When you try to get an appointment with a prospect that you're going after, you ask them, oh, when would be good for you next week? But when you do that, you're asking them to think. You're asking them to spend time, racking their brains, like, I gotta think to meet you, to get you to sell me something. Do the footwork and be smooth about it, right? And go like as if you're someone in demand as well, right? It's the game like dating, right? So, I got a 2 p.m. next Tuesday or like a 4 p.m. next Thursday, which one works better for you? That always gets the appointment a lot easier than asking the client, would you be interested in this? Would you like to meet me there? You give them a question where they can say no to you, you're in a one-way street and there's no turning back, and boom, you put down the phone and that's it. So that's at the sort of the prospecting stage, right? But beyond that, I think it's really just like always being assertive, but not being rude at the same time. It's a very fine balance. And also, I think one thing I've learned over the years as well is really learning to listen and ask the right questions. It's a lot more important than saying the right stuff at the right time, because people are tuned to different things at different times as well. So there's a book that I read that's really good, and it's called Power Questions, and it's really helped me a lot personally with my sales as well. And it's really taught me the right kind of questions to ask with different kind of context and all that. And I think, lastly, I think it's persistence, right? There's some research somewhere, and I can't remember off the back of my head where I read this, but a lot of salespeople give up at like the second or third attempt, but the majority of approaches come at the fourth or fifth, or so on and so forth. And I recall, early days when I was in sales, one of my biggest clients that I closed at that time, I took a good 2-3 months, to get my first appointment. But that led to one of the biggest revenue, upticks in my career there. And it came about because the person I was talking to, who was just a junior level executive, she felt really bad. She's, Philip, I've been dragging you for so long. I know I've owed you this for the longest time. All right, well, I'll settle something with my manager, but I can't promise you anything, right? And that was it. That was the start. I brought my boss in, and boom, we closed the whole thing. So I've always told the salespeople that I manage, like, look, unless they literally tell you to piss off, don't, like, there must be a way to get it. And it's just, maybe you're not hitting the right notes. You gotta do more research. You gotta do more groundwork. You gotta make it easier for them. And I think that's the key to, like, closing. You gotta make it, all the client has to do is to say yes. Because you've addressed everything, you've paved the way for, his success with your product. There's nothing else to worry about. All you have to do is just sign up. Is there anything else? So I think that's it.
So this year we're going to introduce always be helping rather than always be closing for the sales team as well.
That's so
they will close if you're consistent in helping them and showing them that they need you and they need your service. So always be helping.
So Mark actually asked a question which I think everybody in software would want to know, which is, how do you increase your prices after you initially started with a low price? How do you then boost it up, and how do you then deal with those clients?
Existing customer.
Well, like even new, right? Because like it's just the idea that you start at one price and prices tend to go up, right? So how do you deal with that if somebody's subscribing for the next year, but they're not, there's no $10 plan anymore. There's a $20 plan. You grandfather them. What do you do?
Yeah, I suppose there's no like 100% right answer to this. I think it's nice to grandfather people for a little while. I'm not saying forever, but for a bit, just to make. If you're like, cool man, your renewal's next month, just it's going to be $449 instead of the $129 you paid off originally. They don't even have time to migrate to another solution, and that allows you to say things like, cool. So I think it's also a really good idea to explain why. So this is what I used to do more in the context of Trade Gecko. We'd explain, it's like, cool, so just so you know, when we first set up pricing, it was Cameron and Bradley and Carl, and around 4 other people sitting in like a small room working away the product. And that's where we originally set up pricing. Since then we've done a lot of research into the value it provides. We've also had 35 engineers working on it full-time for 2 years. What we've done through customer feedback is we've established that our value metrics are this, and this is why we're making these changes. And yeah, we'd like to give you a 6 months notice. We'd love you to still stay with us, and if you've got any negative feedback, we'd love to hear it, but otherwise we'd love to have your support on the email. Something like that. And I think the second thing is, sorry, not to keep rambling on, is to make sure your customers really love you. Like if your customers are happy, like Lachlan and I do a lot of research on this, like people who provide a net promoter score of 9 or 10 are so much less sensitive to price that makes it a lot easier to increase your price. And they might even be, if you told that same narrative that I just presented to somebody who rated you 10 out of 10, like 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our product or service to a friend or family member, unless they were actually very price sensitive and that was going to make a difference to their business or their profitability or how they could run payroll, they'll probably be like, oh yeah, it's been awesome being with you guys for 2 years, congratulations, just update it.
So one of the questions I'll ask from Russell, because it's actually really close to my heart, which is, how do you convince someone that the old way is not the best way? Because the response I get for our product is, I have a contact us form on my page. And that's free, so why should I pay? And I'm like, well, we have our thing, but what do you guys do, particularly in digital marketing, right? How do you convince someone that that's what they need to do and not take out a newspaper ad?
Yeah, why print on TV isn't, yeah. Well, with digital, it's a lot easier, right? Because there's trackability, there's accountability, the whole transparency bit usually works. And I think moving clients away from all this kind of thinking just requires a good pilot. That's what entails it. Also, when you talk about showing stats or case studies or whatever to clients, you have to tailor it against what they're used to as well, and not just be in your own universe with the stats. Oh, like digital is this, we have this monthly active users. You're talking to a guy that only runs TV, right? You're talking about monthly active users, like what? We TV, we have different metrics and all that kind of stuff. So I think the platforms actually support us a lot with very good material. They stack themselves up against TV. They do branded studies and all that kind of stuff with the offline channels, and that helps illustrate that understanding because whatever client you're talking to, and they might be running like an e-commerce business. You might think they're savvy and they might act like it, but at the bottom of it, they might not know what they're doing as well. And we've encountered quite a few of these prospects as well. Head of marketing somewhere and doing e-commerce, and he just wants to go, let's say, for the lowest cost per click. Like, what about cost per acquisitions? Does that even matter to you? Like, oh no, just the lowest cost per click. Right? Okay. So educating, I think the client is extremely important. But how you educate, you have to take in mind the context of what they understand, where they're coming from, and what they're used to. So, there's always a tendency when we prepare material to just only have ourselves in mind as the audience, and it says so much, but it still happens, right, to the best of us as well. So sometimes what it also requires is just to maybe close that laptop and just take on a very kind of like formal kind of conversation with that client, and that usually gets you the best kind of information to attack or to address. Yeah.
Sarah, because I know that you're, and I hate to use this word, disrupting like a very established industry, right? Where you want to get the biggest and baddest law firm, and like, how do you convince clients that actually you don't need to do that path, that there's another way?
It's a lot of educated again. So when we came to Singapore, we ran an entire legal startup academy. We did it with one of the co-working spaces, and we did it out at ACE, the Ideation Centre. Just a series of 6 modules, events, one a month, 2 different places, just to educate people about legal for startups and not do it as a hard sell. We never sold Dragon Law during those events. It was far more educational, but always with that subtlety of this is the law for startups, but it's something you don't need a lawyer to do it. We can explain it to you now. There's loads of content out there, with tools and similarities, so a lot of education piece. And then it comes back to that trust as well. And when I said before about marketing, creating content to build trust for you with people, and just getting that credibility of business. So there's in some countries where we have semi-competitors, they don't have their founding team on their website. You can't find any information about them. We've got far bigger advantage than that because we blast our founding team everywhere. They're lawyers from top law firms. That really helps us. But with technology, so building that trust and credibility goes a long way to converting people to do something different. To change the way they've been doing it. I think it's the only way to do that.
I mean, one thing that I love, Awira asks this, which is, how do you convince a customer who doesn't know he has a pain point? Right? Like, if they have that point, they're iron that, but what do you do to convince them?
So I think you usually have this issue when you have someone you meet a client with like a big complex, right? Like this big ego issue or something, and doesn't want to ever admit he's wrong. It's constantly putting you down, telling you how your upstart product, it all sounds good, but he's comfortable with what he has. He's doing better than he expected and all that. So I think the key with this kind of clients is to have the right line of questioning, and I always tell sales guys, it's a little bit like lawyering, and how you get something out of a witness, right? You just got to lead them down the right lines, and then at the right moment, use what they say against them. That's all you got to do. And so you ask a lot of "Would you agree?" questions. What do you think of this and that? Would you agree? And when they agree with certain things, and you realize you can actually pivot that into what you're selling, that's a kind of, and of course you have to be very sensitive about this, and come across say it with a smile. I think that really helps a lot of the time. And then when you challenge these people, not too much, just a little bit, put them in a bit of discomfort, I think that's when they'll start to open up. Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing, so Emily asked this question, which when I floated it, everybody said was a really good question. And it's how do you scale sales that have long sales cycles and take a lot of effort? You know, Sarah, you said that you do have a long sales cycle. I can imagine Trade Gecko as well. The sales cycle must have been, I mean,
They're pretty short. Yeah. Yeah. Also, there's always a curve. There's always a curve. Trade Gecko sales cycle was pretty short. I think partially because we still offered a monthly plan, so it didn't become as big a thing. But I remember one of the last sales I was ever involved in closing at Trade Gecko was a company, and I forget they had their account ID was like either in the hundreds or in the early thousands, like 1,200 or something, and they're now like tens and tens and tens of thousands out of their account. Like this was from like 2012 or something. So there's always a pretty even distribution for any company. But I think no, Trade Geckos is still only a few weeks. I think.
What about you, sir? Because you said that, like, for you do have some long sales cycles, right? So how do you scale that from a sales point?
So it's tough. It is. Focusing on having a mix of one, allowing the salespeople to specialize in areas. You know, we've got sales people in our sales team that specialize in early stage startups, ones that specialize in SMEs, and then ones that specialize in larger enterprise. Having a variety of plans, not so many that it's confusing for the client, but having a few different options. So even with the team that focus on SMEs, there's some lighter price plans that you get them quicker wins while they're working on the SMEs that are going to go for the larger plans as well.
So, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask that maybe they didn't write down or we haven't covered or anything burning? I've got a couple more here, but I thought I'd shoot it out to the audience to know. Anybody?
Just on that bit about long sales cycles, right? I mean, one of the sharings that I have, from Purple Click, one of our biggest clients is actually Harley Davidson. So you never expect, a client like that to go with like a 60-man SME kind of agency, to go with the WPPs and what have you, right? And the approach that we took with that client included, it took 6 months. And what happened was we actually seeded custom-made proposals to all these big fishes that we thought were good to take bets on. And of course, a lot of them rejected us, right? And Harley at that point, when we sent it to them, they said, yeah, it's great, you customize something totally for me, we'll keep that in mind. And sure enough, 6 months later, when we were thinking of, right, maybe we should focus a little bit more on performance, even with our branding campaigns and all that, they came back to us and they actually adopted everything that we proposed to them. But it took 6 months for them to consider that. So I think seeding is a very good practical kind of approach to take when it comes to long-tail clients. Even prospecting, myself, when I was at Facebook, one of my biggest closures was Asus. And I had prospected the head of social, let's say, he was based in Taiwan, from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Chatted him up, had a couple of informal conversations, and I was just feeding him information all the time about product developments and new stuff on Facebook for a good 5-6 months. All of a sudden, he comes back after like 7 months, and then he tells me, I'm shifting budget from Google over to Facebook. I want to try what you've been telling me about. I finally got the jurisdiction to do it, blah, 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 blah. So it's always the case. I think you have your big fish that you just throw things across to. You have a mailing list or something. You build something for them that's scalable. I think beyond that, maybe having a repository is good as well, because all these custom decks, all these things take so much effort, and the last thing you want is to just get someone new to learn all this from scratch as well. So having a repository is good. And the last thing I think is also thinking about the ad cover that you can have. Maybe it's unique to us because we're an agency, but we pull in guys from the platforms, like the Google guys and whatever. We bring them into these big meetings, and sometimes just showing that name card has a lot of difference. And people chose us because you see you're so much closer to the platforms than the ad agencies are and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Just one more point on that, on the long sales cycle as well. I think it's really important to do a lot of raise the bid, because you might have hit someone at the wrong time, where you might not have been the solution for them, but they've gone through a large part of the sales cycle already. So while you're working on new leads and new sales cycle, we have our sales team also looking at people that were spoken to 6 months ago, a year ago, who have already been through a portion of that sales cycle. Hit them again, and you might get them at the right time, and they already understand the product, so they might be a quick win straight away at that point.
Just scaling along the sales cycle. I think the other thing as well is, especially for, once again, if I'm talking in the context of an early stage startup, the only way long sales cycles really work for early stage companies is charge more money. Like, there's no, like, to charge more money or charge an annual contract. It's the only way. Like, if you think of it as a quadrant, right? If you've got really short sales cycle and the user gets set up by themselves, like it's a short decision-making process, sure, charge $10 a month. But you can be successful down there, and you can be successful, if there's dollars here and times here, you can be successful up here as well if you charge lots of money and it takes a long period of time. Over here it's like the quadrant of death. Like, if you're charging $10 a month and it takes a long time, like that's, I don't know any companies that works well.
Because I know for us, the longest that we've taken to close a customer, and I admit this is a global deal with one of the largest financial institutions in the world, it took 2 years, right? And that's 2 years of, we'd like a POC in this branch, and maybe one in that one, and that one, and that one. No, we'll give you the deal, but we just want to see that it works. And you invest so much time into this client that it's almost like they know as well that and that's what we have to do. We were like, right guys, so for every time we come in now, we're going to start charging.
I think that's okay though. I think there's always going to be outliers. Like, it's okay to have some sales that take 3 months or 6 months or 12 months for a free product. But I just meant as the norm. Yeah, that sort of, if we think of it as those 4 quadrants, could be the usual exercise.
So, any questions from the audience? Yeah, sure. Yeah. But you're gonna have to yell.
So hi guys, thank you for the insights. Now, one of the things I guess about Singapore is that it's a small country, and you expand beyond that, you want to do any kind of successful startup. So my question is, in terms of variation, right, across markets, is there anything that you need to take note of? Is there any difference between selling, let's say, someone from a B2B startup, product or B2B startup, let's say, Indonesia, compared to Hong Kong, Japan?
I think for us, when we came from Hong Kong to Singapore, in Hong Kong, people, as soon as they see a little bit of value, they will jump on something because they're so used to paying through the roof for tiny apartments, but rent's pretty much the same as in Singapore for a large unit. You get a lot more here for the same price for that. So in Hong Kong, you can quickly get a quote, but not to have as much negotiation and request for discount if you can show that they're getting value, if you can convey the value of your product with far less negotiation over price, particularly.
Well, regional experience at Facebook, I think obviously the greatest similarity in terms of market will be Malaysia, right? We talk about markets within that Malaysian market is just Kuala Lumpur and Penang, pretty much in terms of how similar it is to Singapore. Negotiation styles, I would say in Singapore, because of accessibility and just the freedom of information around everywhere, you tend to get pushed the hardest when it comes to pricing and when it comes to.
You should come to India.
Right. I would imagine as well. I didn't handle the Indian market, so. But I think then when it comes to these large, diverse kind of markets like the Philippines or Indonesia, right? Then there's a lot of arbitrage going on. There's a lot of lack of transparency everywhere. People are charging all kinds of prices for like very similar products. And then that's where, in a sense, there's an opportunity as well. For instance, I know, let's say, one of our closest competitors has, since so we're over 10 years old, and they're about the same age. And since their inception, they've not been profitable in Singapore. Right, they're another agency, I mentioned Google. And they've been losing money, gaining money, losing money. But in Thailand, they're killing it. They're making so much money right now. And it's really down to that whole arbitrage model that they operate on. And it's down to how nascent the market is, right? So it of course depends what you're selling. But I think opportunity sometimes sprouts out of, obviously it sprouts out of lack of transparency. And I think that's something to consider.
I mean, I think, and also one thing that's important, at least for us, is we know what we need each market for, right? So, for example, in Asia, people are really price sensitive, but they tend to be a bit more forgiving, which is, hey, this isn't quite right with your product. Okay, give me a couple days, I'll fix it, and you can keep using it. And they're happy to do that. Whereas if you go to the States, you get one shot, right? And if something goes wrong, if they don't like the color of your font or whatever it is, they're not interested. But if they see value, they will not even think about negotiating. So I think you have to understand what you want to get out of each country and how each country works. I think you had a question as well.
Well, not a question, it was more a comment. When it was all around, I mean, when the one common point we all agreed on this evening was actually training the sales force. And another one was then all around creating leads. And a thing we did, because we were way too lazy to build up a sales department or a company in Switzerland, was we created what we call the liaison model. So basically, everybody was tasked with out of every interaction to create insights. And thus we created a huge database of connections throughout the industries that are of relevance for us, that we never had 100% sales reach our entire time there, which made us very successful very quickly. And it was all based on, well, we knew who we were talking to, we knew their mother-in-law. It's a bad example, but we closed the deal because we knew that. And yeah, nobody in our company has anything that's called sales or representative of anything. We all got an old job as project manager, director, or creative random people with attitudes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point to make everyone in your business an ambassador for it and to be.
And to know that that's their role. Like
Yeah.
you go to a party, you better tell 3 people about us.
Yeah, and so even if you've got a sales force, also make sure that your developers, your tech guys know about the business and know how to articulate what the business does, like a salesperson.
Well, I drill that into my tech guys, because I'm like, you're talking to other tech guys, who are the guys that might be using this product. So go tell them about how awesome we are. But coaxing some of them out of their shell can be a bit of a challenge. Any questions? Sure, let's start with you, because you have your hand up first. Yeah.
Hi, so have you ever done an anti-sale? So where you maybe approached it all the way to the company and turns out, I actually think the product is for you, and the digital sale is like buying the handbag or whatever. No.
Yeah. Clearly touched on this.
Yeah, this was something at Trade Gecko we had all the time, like all the time, because it's especially in a software as a service model, it's a salesperson's responsibility to walk away from people who aren't good fits. And this is what we'd even say to the customers. And interestingly, it was the same kind of conversation jujitsu for getting somebody to admit a pain point as it is to a customer who's really enthusiastic, because they might, so just to, I suppose it would be better if I provide context. I think I wrote about this in one of our articles as well, is TradeGecko provides inventory management software for small to medium businesses. What we don't do is we don't provide software for manufacturers. So it's people who deal in finished goods, like everything you see was probably bought by one business and sold to another business before it became the chair in this room, the shirt on my back, the video camera, the laptop. What we don't handle is the people who manufacture those, but manufacturing companies can still find you, they can still find your website, and they can still go, hey, I'd like help with inventory, and hey, I'd like that to be on the cloud, and like, hey, I'd like to paying this much money sounds fantastic. So the conversation goes, and you can't just tell these people to go away. They get really, really upset. So the same thing, the verbal jiu-jitsu, what we normally have to do is like, hey, cool, oh, manufacturing, yeah, I'm being a little bit facetious, we're obviously always respectful. But cool, so I'm guessing, do you need to track like the amount of raw materials you have in stock and finished goods? And they go, yeah, that's what I need. It's like, do you also need to track like how many goods, how much you have like partially manufactured, and then know how much you'll have ready, like say 6 months from now, so you can forecast the raw materials you have? And it's like, yes, that's exactly what we need. You're like, cool, we don't do any of that. That is where if you just say, no, we don't do manufacturing, you're like, no, maybe we can make it work. So you kind of have to, we had to provide one of the, Lachlan and I were always trying to help our customers more, so we gave some sales training to one of our customers just because they didn't have a sales team yet, but advocaatly, and we were enthusiastic to help them out, and they had a similar problem. So that's kind of the similar line of questioning. You want to guide them on a journey to understanding why you're not a fit, even though you might be like, I'm busy, man, like I don't have time to do this, just like be it no. Like, yes, that's how we kind of found the best way to do that next sale. I think that's is that what you meant? Yeah, that's how we started the development.
Yeah, I think there's times when your product is a good fit for them and you're getting that across, but also when the client is not a good fit for you. And we had one recently where in the meeting they basically said they do a whole load of illegal labour practices. They've got some things they were kind of asking us, well, it's basically like, are your documents going to be too legally correct for us? What happens if I rip out a whole lot of this stuff from the employment contracts? No, I don't want that to be in there. Are you then going to sue me for changing your contracts? We don't sue people, we're not going to sue people. But we came away from it and he's like, yes, send me through this, send me through the pricing. I don't really want that. Like, if we are then, something, if he gets sued for something and then he has been providing employment contracts from Dragon Law, and he's been ripping things out, we just don't even want our name associated in any way with that at all. So we've done gently, and we had to get him some quotes for some other work. We got a very large quotes from our partner in law firms, and so found a way to gently, without just basically saying you're a crook. Go away.
I know at Lucep we are not this list, right? So we make it very clear to our clients that this is what we do, this is what we're really good at doing, but we are not a CRM, we are not a live chat tool, we are not these things. And so when people start asking about these, it's really easy for our sales guys to just be like, no, sorry, we don't do that, right? And because we fit within a spectrum of a lot of different products, so, but we've given them this list, which is like, this is not what we do. So if anybody asks for these things, don't sell it, because sales guys, they tend to have a very over-eager, they want to say yes to everything. They don't ever want to say no to a customer, and saying no is a very powerful thing for them.
I think just to add to that, if I may, it's actually really good, like it builds lots of credibility to explain that. And really, if they've got 7 asks, and you do 6 of them, and that 7th one, you're like, no, we definitely don't do that. Please don't buy us because you think we're going to do that. They'll be like, well, no, it's okay. Don't worry, I like a long list, I understand. And I think, I think explaining, as a salesperson, explaining you're there to help them figure out if what their XYZ solution will meet their needs. And if we do work together and we figure out that we will meet your needs, that's great. And if we work together and figure out we don't meet your needs, that's okay as well. Because to be honest, what will happen is you'll start giving us money, and in 2 or 3 months, you'll start to hate us. And to be honest, we probably won't like you that much either. You'll be calling us every day. You'll be like writing me stuff about us on Facebook. You'll be harassing our customer support team, and you'll still be 4 or 5 months away to finding a solution. Now, I would tell customers exactly that, and it means that the customers are a bit like, whoa, this guy's like really trying to look after us. He's not trying to waste our time. It builds like a lot of credibility. It was quite useful for us as well.
Stephanie, you had a question? So, I mean, I'll take this because this is something that's happened to us very recently. So obviously we consider ourselves a sales acceleration product, and so you would think that the person that we would go and talk to would be in the sales team, right? Turns out, salespeople don't give a damn, right? They just want to get as many leads as possible sent to them, right? So even though the person within our company or within our clients that were using our app was the sales team, the person that we had to get the buy-in from was the marketing person, because they were the person that was responsible for the website, they were the person responsible for the leads, and they were the ones who were going to be where the budget for the tool was going to be coming from. So we learned that very fast because we spent 6 months trying to pitch the sales guys, and they all were just like, yeah, so, like, not my problem. Oh, it's something with the website? I don't know that, right? So as soon as you realize really quickly, then, oh, all of our content strategy, all of our pitch decks, like everything had to change because the person and the buyer persona that we were going after was not the right person. And so it's quite important to know, I think, whose budget, whose life are you making better? The leads are higher quality. It makes the marketing team look good. The sales guys might be closing, but they think they're going to be closing anyway.
I think something that's really worked well for us is playbooks. And when we do playbooks, we don't just get a department to do it and they fill everything out and everyone's just supposed to just that whole, right? We actually get multi-departments to have their say. We have a GDoc that has different sides of the coin, like from marketing, from sales, from whatever. And they fill out questions that are filled out by all the salespeople with these changing needs and what have you, right? The other thing as well, I think, is really shadowing, and there's a lot of ways to scale sales shadowing. And one of the things sounds a little bit creepy, but I've actually asked my sales guys if I could record them in the meeting before, as voice recordings, right? And just having that spread across the team for learning purposes, from my top performer down to, it's a bit of convincing needed, but usually, you can get it done. That has really helped, I think, the team to adapt to different requirements as well. Yeah.
And I think we have one question here.
Yeah, just a quick question. When we meet key decision makers, humans are naturally resistant to change. So I mean, all of us, we have a solution and we know that our solution provides value. We address the problem for them, but the only problem is that we are all very resistant to change. So how do you demonstrate to them that your solution is much more better or superior as compared to the existing solutions that they are currently using and are very, very comfortable?
If I can take it. So
Yeah.
I think have a challenge planned out that you can throw at them, right? Because the people that you're talking to be used to taking care of so many things, sometimes in a certain sense as well, talking down to so many people. So you're coming in and you want to have that speak on sort of level terms as well. So if the product that you have that is the challenger, that is the not the incumbent, you want to come in and sort of have something ready that they could just say, okay, two. And I think that's the approach that you should take rather than sometimes with these higher level decision makers, it's not that good to ask that many questions sometimes because they might not be in the thick of it, so they might not know what works best. But if you just throw like high level stuff at them and then you have something ready made, easy to ingest, that's usually where I think it's easier to get a sign off on. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah? Lady in the back. Oh, that's you.
I apologies in case I don't decide to later. My question is touching on a few of the points that you discussed today. So as a company who's starting to cater to a different market, a service company, how do you tackle a prospective client? Which is your ideal client, you address the pain point, you know, some of that regular email. Their only point for story, they know you're awesome, they know you're good, is price. And it's not that because you're outrageous expensive, they know what the market rates are. They're just like Dal said, they happen to lot in India, but Dal tend to have a lot more in Asia, and they know you're good. So is there a way, as a service company, to explain to your client that this is kind of a man hours? It goes to your point where you said that we've got 35 and we are working on it. Do you think that helps? sure you have a 100% solution, but I struggle with that in a sense for like, because people are always, they want to go to the market with like $5, so.
I don't think I don't really have the answer. I just think anytime, especially for professional services, isn't something I know a lot about. I think anytime pricing is discussed, it needs to still be an exchange. Like, it's not just like, oh, cool, we'll make the price lower, like, is this okay? It's like, cool, we understand it's the first project, we're just starting out. Like, we're happy to do something with the price. If we do something with the price, can you pay us today? Like, it's like, oh, that's actually no, do it. Okay, you know, what can you pay right now? Okay, great. Will you do a 2-minute video case study with us and not only allow us to distribute it, you've got a bigger audience than us, can you distribute it to your audience? Well, oh great, well we can do something on price to factor that in as well. And then you almost come up with, what you do is, one, you can close deals today, and you make sure you get some money, and you get some distribution, but you're still maintaining parity with the client. Cool, you understand it'll just be for this job, right? Once we review, and then all of a sudden you're selling future business at a higher rate than the deal you discounted. There would be a couple of things to potentially start considering. But it could be there's a problem that's not related to price that you don't necessarily know about, would be something else to consider. But there are a couple of triggers that might help this.
And I think Philip talked about it earlier where you mentioned pivoting. So make sure that it's a trade, right? Like, okay, fine. What else? Okay, I'm not going to lower my price. Maybe I give you something a bit extra.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, if your product is, you're able to actually accelerate the consumption of your product, whatever it is you're selling, that could be something that you can sacrifice margins on as well. Most of the higher spend coming over a longer period versus, getting them like a higher price upfront. And I think that could be incremental because they're gonna upsell themselves in time to come. They love your product and it's a good fit and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of time, and that's one of the approaches we take to clients as well.
Any questions? Okay, well, I mean, we've been up here talking for a while, and our panelists are going to stick around for a bit. There's some pizza and drinks in the back if anybody's hungry. I know it's around dinner time, and I'm sure they're going to be happy to answer whatever questions come. But thank you guys so much for coming and being with us. And thank you to the three of you for taking time out of what is very busy days to come down here and support this as well. Thanks so much.